Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Real Estate Life. My name is Rob Edgerly. I'll be your host today, and I'm a team leader with eXp Realty, and I am super excited for today's guest. Any of you that have ever thought about branding, heard about branding, you need to be speaking and listening to this person. She is a brand expert. She is the founder of Agent Authority Academy. She is a podcast host for Unleash Your Inner Legend. Excited to talk about that. I'm really excited to have Hollie Kitchens join us today.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be on here. I'm thrilled. We go way back, so super excited to be on your show and very honored.
Thanks for being here, Hollie. We met during NAEA, National Association of Expert Advisors. I met a lot of people, and you're one of those people I got a chance to meet and work with, and as well as your husband. And we've had him on, and that was we had a lot of nuggets from that show. And I knew that you were somebody that we wanted to talk to, because one of these buzzwords that we all hear about is branding. And a lot of people are paying attention to that because of Instagram and Facebook, and I mean, this whole show here. So get involved with branding, and why do you think it's important?
It's so funny because I grew up in a super small town, like population 1,300, and it's called Rush Springs, Oklahoma. And we grew up in like low income housing, so we didn't have much, obviously, to have. And I'm telling this quick story because Hollie from Rush Springs, Oklahoma would have never been on live with you today. So grew up low income housing to the point to like we didn't have very much. And I remember in first grade, there was this little boy I thought was cute, and I wanted to get his attention. So of course, in that age, you play tag. When I finally got his attention playing this game of tag, he looked at me and he was like, "Why do you wear the same pair of jeans every day?" And in reality, like that was the only pair of jeans I owned. So I was so mortified and embarrassed. And of course, the little kid didn't mean anything, but he was just curious. So I played it off like, oh, what's my favorite pair of jeans, which I guess was the truth because it was the only pair. But at that point in time, I kind of instilled in a belief in my mind that attention equals negativity. So I kind of like, from that, and then also some other bullying and stuff, just what kids go through. I just kind of disassociated any kind of want with attention and any kind of want to standing out and doing stuff like that. So needless to say, I went through high school being one of those kids in the hallway that you avoided. Like we all were like, listening to punk rock music and had fun in our own way, which is awesome because that kind of helped me build a really big passion for music. However, it did like kind of instill lay low, and it spilled into adulthood. So in 2009, I was at a bonfire at the lake, and I was telling my friend, I'm like, yeah, I think I want to get into real estate. And she's like, well, you have to promise me you're going to talk to Jay Kinder. And Jay was in Lawton at the time, and Jay's a huge name. I did not know Jay at the time other than seeing him everywhere with marketing. Right. And after a couple of drinks of liquid courage, I promised her that. Well, then I wake up and I'm like, why did I do that? Because like I was going to go talk to a brokerage in a small town, just kind of playing it safe, laying low. And boy, that was a decision that changed my life. But what I loved working with Jay is after I got licensed in 2010, early 2010, what I loved about him, working for him, is I got to hide behind his brand. So his name was on the billboard. His name was on the sign. I just built up rapport and talked to my clients. So I still got to play it safe, still got to lay low. So during that time, it was before like iPhone cameras that they are today. And they had a flip camera. I don't know if you remember those, but it was like this little bitty handheld flip thing.
Oh, yeah.
And even though it was Jay's brand, we still were encouraged to, do our own things, do like marketing and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take this camera and I'm going to do an open house, like a virtual open house. So this is before obviously COVID. So, just walk around and showing like this new construction in Elgin.
Right.
And I put it on YouTube, and it's so funny. I don't know what I did or what keywords I did back then, but I remember like a week later, I clicked on it just to kind of see like, hey, how's it performing? And it had 30,000 views, which is crazy for back then. Yeah. I was like, but you would think that I would have been like, yes, this is awesome. I'm going to be like, just going for it. No, like the small scared girl came out in me. It was like, I not only deleted the video, but I deleted my entire channel because I was weirded out the thought that 30,000 strangers were watching me do this open house, which is so silly. Cause like, I'm like, dang it, I missed my opportunity. I could be like a world famous YouTuber right now, but what can you do? But anyway, so saying all of that to let you know that like, no matter where you're at in business, if you were like, okay, I don't want to put myself out there, I get it because I was there. When I started a boutique, it was like this little hobby boutique that I had started for concert goers. I had hired an e-commerce coach, and he had asked me a question that really resonated with me. And that was, what are you doing differently than Target or Amazon? And, you know, if you think about it, you can go to Target, buy a $12 Guns N' Roses shirt. You can go on Amazon and get a Guns N' Roses shirt shipped to you like in 2 days. So what was I doing differently to charge double that amount for clothing, right? So I was like, well, what am I doing differently? Really nothing. I mean, I just had an online store, and that was even worse because people couldn't come in and feel it. Like you just had to buy it online and hope that it was worth like quality. So I was like, okay. So I started thinking like content strategy. I started thinking like, what can I do? And I just love music. I love going to concerts, and somehow I always end up meeting the band or going, getting VIP. Some crazy stuff always happens to where I end up connecting with these musicians. And I'm like, why don't I just hit record on those conversations when I meet them? And then silly me back then, I was like, I'm just going to turn it to a blog, which is crazy because I'm not a grammar person. I'm not a writer. None of that stuff would fit for like, I'm not a blog person. But it was a great idea because I would take it and record it. And when I started, I did like a transcription, and I was like, I didn't know how I felt about it. Well, we got me and my friend Donna, she was coming down to Dallas because Warped Tour was in town. And I had got a couple of our, like, when we were teenagers, like our heroes who we looked up to in music to agree to a podcast episode. Well, back then it was just an interview. It was a blog interview. And then before the night before, or maybe it was the day after, I can't remember. We were talking at the kitchen table, and she was like, I'm like, Donna, you're so funny. Like, you're awesome. I said, it was after. I was like, I need to start including you in on these. And then we're like, start talking about podcasts. So this is 2017. And I'm like, this is it. This is going to be how I, set myself different, how I stand out from Amazon. This is going to be how you can stand out from Target. Being yourself and putting yourself out in an avenue way. And that, for me, that was podcasting. So we started doing these music interviews, and, I don't have the boutique anymore, but we still do the interviews. But during that time, I would ask, community questions like, hey, we're having so-and-so artist on, ask your fan questions. So they started feeling involved. They started feeling more. And once people bought from me and they understood the whole community, like they were like loyal for life. So that's how I kind of got into positioning and branding. It was kind of, I don't want to say forced, but I was at that point in time where I'm like, okay, if you really want to be a business owner, you really want to be that person that shows up, you've got to put your big boy, big girl pants on and show up as a business leader. You've got to take control. You've got to put yourself out there. And it was so funny, Rob, like when I would take pictures for the boutique, I was so weirded out about people seeing me that I would cut my head off. So like the clothing would just be below. That's how, I don't know. It's so crazy. Like, obviously I've gotten a lot over that from just, personal development, consistent, always put myself out there, and then doing branding and stuff like that. So just taking that. And then once I realized that like not all attention is negative attention, I really was like, holy moly, like this is fun. This is fun putting yourself out there in the way that you want to showcase your personality. This is fun, going out and doing these things. And then I started getting people asking me, how do you do a podcast? It has to be super hard. I'm like, it's actually not, but let's talk about it. So that kind of evolved into like, okay, I've figured out how to, put my voice out there to overcome all of the limiting beliefs. Now, how can I help other people do it? Because I just had so many people asking me. They're like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. Da, da, da. Like I had a radio DJ that I listened to as a child inbox me asking me for help with their stuff. And I was like, wait, what? Like, it was just crazy. You know what I mean? To see the kind of how everything kind of turned. But I hope that answers your question on how I got into branding. I know it's kind of a long story, but I wanted to let everyone know that you don't have to be this super confident, big ego person to start putting yourself out there and start branding yourself.
I love that. I love that story. One of my other things that I do is I'm a Dale Carnegie trainer, and Dale Carnegie's all about personal transformation and getting people to learn how to speak in front of people. We see that shift, and a lot of people come to that class with this this, you said, attention equals negativity.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to put themselves out there. They don't want to stand up in front of people and speak, and you really have to get over this stuff, and it's hard. What was the moment for you where you got over that?
So, I mean, like I said, it was just years of personal development. And I had to do a lot of catch up because, like I said, I grew up in a super small town, and you're going to laugh, but Tony Robbins to me, before I joined Jay's team in 2009, Tony Robbins to me was that guy, the tall guy in the elevator at Shallow Hal. Like, that's how I knew. So, like, when I walked into Jay's office, and of course, Jay's like has his books that he hands out to everyone, and I'm like looking through, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the guy from Shallow Hal. Like, that's how I knew Tony Robbins. But it was just years of personal development, being around the right people, and that's key, because when you're around those people that are always going to be like, oh, you shouldn't do that, or, oh, that's bad, or, oh gosh, you're nobody, no one's going to listen to you. Those are trigger words that you really need to pick up on your so-called friends, because they're not going to be your friends if they're sitting there trying to hold you back, because we all know the crab in the bucket analogy. All the crabs like to bring the other crabs going up down because they want them to be down with them. So, it's a lot of personal development too, but I would say if it was one principle, and it was Brian Moses that really helped me with this, he had said, he's talking about coming from a place of love. And I took that as, if someone's giving me negative feedback, and I think this is what I was scared about in the whole YouTube thing and, put myself out there. I was scared of getting that negative feedback, that negative attention, right?
Yeah.
But Brian had said, always coming from a place of love. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, of course, we should be coming from a place of love, but others should as well. So in the sense of, if I post, something on YouTube tomorrow, and a troll gets on there and was like, oh my gosh, nobody want to be influencer, ha, 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 ha. It's a good assumption to say that they're not coming from a place of love. So I think that was my filter, was like, okay, if someone's not coming from a place of love, I pity them that they grew up the way they grew up, or they have the self-doubt that they have to bring others down. But now, I pay attention to obviously those who do come from a place of love and say, oh, that's probably not a cute look, or, oh, you've had too much wine, you probably shouldn't post that. You know what I mean? Like, right. So understanding the true intention of the feedback, of the attention, if you will, and then just going from there. So like, it's just tuning out all those people who aren't coming from a place of love, because at the end of the day, they don't have my best intention. So I'm not interested in hearing their feedback.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, just if you know that if they're not coming from that place, why would we listen to them?
Exactly. Well, I'm going to take your advice. Like,
yeah.
And if you look at them, they're probably commenting the same thing on other people's as well. So I think people have got to understand that's just part of it. You might have somebody that's a naysayer. You might have somebody who's like, oh my gosh, I went to high school with her, but there's always going to be a naysayer. But those naysayers, 9 out of 10 times, are not going to have your best interest at heart. So, and personally too, they're probably not your ideal client. They're probably not going to buy a house from you. They're probably not going to use you as for branding or whatever the case may be in your business. So I think that's key too, is listening to the market, listening to the feedback. And if it's like a 13-year-old behind a keyboard, well, first off, you can't even legally buy a home. So I'm not interested to hear your feedback, kid. So
right.
I think that's just having that high level awareness is key. So, and maybe that after you do that and keep doing it, that builds up confidence too as well. So it's kind of like a muscle.
Yeah, I love that too. That's it is like a muscle. We know that once you do something one time, you try it again, it gets easier and easier to do the more you do it.
Yeah.
So let's shift to branding. When we think about branding, why as a real estate agent with a team, as a team leader, we think about this. Agents are thinking about it themselves. I've seen newer agents just really go all in on their personal brand. I mean, why is it important?
Well, I guess a question to your question is, how many real estate agents are in your market, right? There's so many out there, and there's plenty of homes being sold. So obviously we all know community over competition. Like, I'm not interested, but my question is, how are you positioning yourself different than all those other agents in your marketplace, so that those people moving into your area, relocating, upgrading, downgrading, whatever the case may be, what are you doing to stand out and really connect with them to where they're like, I'm going to call Rob. He's the guy I'm going to call whenever, you know what I mean? So that's why it's super important. It's important for the now, which would be your now business, your buyers, your sellers. If you're in recruiting, obviously we're in real estate, everyone's always recruiting all the time. If you're recruiting, it's a great way to attract those people, because who wants to do business with people we don't like? We've all done it before. We're like, oh my gosh, like as soon as you shake hands, you're like, oh, this is going to be a tough deal. Those people probably aren't a good fit, and vice versa, right? So
Yeah.
when you start putting yourself out there in a branding position and start really being super intentional, you not only stand out in your marketplace, but you also start showcasing your personality, and people start connecting with that. And one person who does it really good is Ryan Bowman. Like, he has his 3 keywords. We just went through a brand with him, who's a client of mine, and his keywords are family, faith, and freedom. So he has hero homes, he has all these things. And if you look at all of his content, he's very big on, red, white, and blue. He's very big on helping veterans, first responders, all those amazing people. And you know that when you look at his brand. So to me, it's like, okay, what are you doing? What content you're putting out? Anything from a post to a video to whatever. What are you putting out there to brand yourself? I think it's so important. And you just dropped a name, Dale Carnegie, right? That's importance of, that's a long-term. So like I said, there's short-term wins, which is like, the now money, but then it's also legacy. You got Dale Carnegie, you got Napoleon Hill. You have all these people that have done such a fantastic job of branding themselves that like years later, they're still a household name.
Right.
Even after some of them have passed, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what's the what are you seeing right now when we talk about building your brand? I guess there's what is your brand? And then where is your brand? Right. And then how do you do that? I guess I just came, I don't know if that's came up with thinking about it that way. Like there's a couple different ways to look at that. And
100%.
What are maybe a way to get at some of that is, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making with their brand right now?
Oh my gosh, there's so many ways. One is going to be like being negative, like, posting negativity on Facebook. When you're that person that's always posting negative stuff, you are what you end up posting, right? So you're going to be known as negative. If you're going to be throwing down your competition and bad mouthing them, that's a mistake there. You always want to flip it and say, this is why I'm great, not this is why they're not great, right? So I think that's a big mistake, is people just bringing negativity in their brand. Unless if you're a politician, I don't think that that's going to be a good idea. Even then, it's probably not a good idea, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, it's going to be brand confusion. Like, so many people, especially those serial entrepreneurs, they start out with so many different things. Like, just throwing this out, this is just an example, but I want to start a t-shirt company, and then I want to do this, and then I want to do this. And then the next thing you know, there's like 500 logos coming across their platform where you're like, okay, what do you even do? Like, what is it that you do? I think that's another mistake. Also too, is not being consistent with your brand image. So like, for instance, you have a fantastic look and feel of your podcast right now. Now, if the next episode, you take Rob Edgerly and you do some script font and make it all crazy and bold and, I don't know, yellow. And then the next week after that, you do green. And then next after that, you do some purple color. It's not consistent look and feel. People are going to be like, this guy's confused. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is your brand? So I think, to me, and of course a brand's always evolving, right? Like, we do brand refreshes all the time. I get that, but you don't want to do it every week. You don't want to do it every month. Maybe at minimum every 2 to 5 years, if that. I get it that trends change. If you look at a brand from the 90s versus now, especially personal branding, the way you have your signature font, it's probably going to be different, obviously, in the 90s than it is today. I totally understand that. But I think another mistake is going to be people not being consistent with their brand and image. And this is including fonts, it's including colors, it's including look and feel. Just all that good stuff. Like, when people when people look at my brand or look at me in general, they're like, do you wear anything else other than black? Do you have anything else other than black? And I'm like, I do. I promise you I do. Not very little, but I do. But if you were to wake up tomorrow and see Hollie Kitchens in hot pink and all these other colors, not that there's anything wrong with hot pink, but that's just not me, my brand. That's a classic example of not being consistent with your brand look and feel. That
makes sense. So negativity, brand confusion, lack of consistency.
Yeah. 3
areas where people are maybe stepping in it and should be thinking more about that. What are when you work with somebody that's just starting off and, to think about their brand, how do you do that? How do you come up with a brand?
So I go through a process of helping them kind of establish it. And, some of the questions that I ask is what's different about you? What's your USP? What are you the expert of? I think one question that I ask and a lot of people get clarity from, and it's a super simple question, is how do you want to show up as? And I say that because if you want to show up, another classic example, and Cindy Featherstone.
Yes.
So she's amazing. She nails it with branding. And I told her this when she was at our mastermind in December. I told her this. I said, you've done such a great job, because when I see Cindy, I think of community, I think of pets, and I think of a team leader. Like, those are the key words. And Cindy, I mean, she just lives it, breathes it, and does it. You always see pictures about her rescue dogs that she's helping, saying, hey, come adopt, or she has her little dog that she always posts of. She's always out in the community serving others. She's always helping her team and being such a fantastic leadership, whether it's on her team or in the community. So to me, it's like asking yourself those questions and then saying, okay, now, and then after you go through it and really be super intentional, it's not just like let's set the timer for 5 minutes and fill this out. It's a really big reflection of how do you want to show up? Do you want to show up as an influencer? Do you want to show up as a real estate agent? Do you want to show up as a, coach, whatever the case may be? But then after you go through that and get clear, then it's asking yourself, am I showing up that way? Because in a brand, to me, it's not just a look and feel. It's not just this, awesome overlay that you have right here. A brand to me can be the way you talk. It can be the way you walk. Another classic example is going to be Grant Cardone. Love him or hate him, the way he talks, the way he walks, and how he is, right? Like, that's just how that's his brand. Now, if he was to, post some video of him, doing something very emotional and sentimental and touchy-feely and woo-woo-wah-wah, it would feel kind of weird, because that's not his brand. And I'm not saying he's not emotional. I'm not saying any of those things, but I'm just saying, like, he's so consistent with his look and feel, as well as his tonality, as well as his opinion on things, and being very outspoken. That's his brand. So, to me, it's like, there's very much authenticity. Oh, that's another mistake too a lot of people make, is they're not authentic to themselves, being themselves. They hold themselves back. And I did this for so long because, like I said, I have such a huge passion for rock and roll. Or like, I could say 9 out of 10 my friends, they don't understand my music at all, which is totally fine. Like, but I would always try to suppress that, because I would always like, oh, okay, I want to fit in, or I want to do this. But when you try to fit in, that's when you don't stand out.
Right.
So too, it's being super authentic, because there's only one you. Like, you can go and wear the same clothes, you can, do whatever, but at the end of the day, there's only one of you like you. So I think maximizing your uniqueness, and what I thought were weaknesses, they were actually my strengths. So for instance, I was such an introvert, just from like, kind of like, being that lay low kid. I was such an introvert that I was always on MySpace. I was always on there. I learned HTML. Mine was that annoying page with the random music that would loop that you couldn't pause, and scrolling stuff and flashing stuff. It was just crazy. Well, people were like, okay, that girl's weird. She needs some help. She needs to get out there and talk to people. But back then that was sought as a weakness, right? But now I use it as strength, because how do you think I get amazing people such as Sharon Letcher on a podcast episode? How do you think I get all these awesome artists on? It's through the power of connecting. Obviously, I don't have their phone numbers. I don't know them in real life. It's connecting, digitally. So what I thought was a weakness turned out to be strength as an adult. It's just the way you change your perspective on things. Yeah. And if there's something, even if it's like, say it's a stutter, and you're like, oh gosh, I can't go out there because I stutter. Well, that's what makes you unique. Someone's going to remember you by that. Yeah. And it's obviously something that, maybe you not be able to change it. Just change the way you look at it. We all know that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. But it's truly understanding, like, okay, what is unique about me? What is unique about me that no one else does or no one else has? And then just maximizing it. Those are the ones you double down on when it comes to content posts, when it comes to doing live, so on and so forth. But I think that that's going to be, when you go through those questions, you really get the clarity of like, if you were to ask a friend, say 10 things or 5 keywords about me, and then you start seeing some repeating patterns, there you go. Like that right there is what you should be I mean, hopefully it's a good thing. If it's a negative thing, you probably shouldn't maximize that in your brand. But if it's something that's like, oh, you're always, doing this, or you're quiet and observant, but you speak only when this, that's cool. Embrace that. And then use that to your advantage.
So I love that point, that being, people not being authentic.
Yeah.
And, I'm just thinking, you try to create an image for yourself, a brand image, and maybe you leave out parts, and maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should be starting to pull some of those things back in, but we don't do it because we worry, well, what if people don't like it?
Yeah.
Right. What if they don't like that part of me? I'm a huge music fan, and used to listen to a lot of metal. So maybe, like, how do I bring that into my brand now? So change the whole demeanor.
I'll give you an example. Same for me, right? Like, people are like, I don't even understand what these people are saying. I'm like, what? It says da 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 da. They're like, okay, you are crazy. Right. Same for me. So like, I would suppress that to where what's so crazy is the moment I started saying, hey, I'm going to this concert, I would have a couple of friends or whatever go with me, but like, the people who are like judgy, those are the people I don't want to be around anyways. Like especially as an adult, we don't have time to be surrounding ourselves with people who are going to sit there and talk behind us as soon as we walk away.
Right.
And I think once you understand, it's like, hey, this is a part of me. Like, this is something that makes me passionate. For me, I'm super passionate about music because growing up in low-income housing, like literally we had a cassette player and we'd rip off music off of the radio, and we'd have these little cassette tapes. Like we would make all these mixtapes, and spilled into, teenage years to even now. Now that I can afford going to concerts, you better believe I'm super excited. Live music is back.
Yes.
But to me, obviously, so for instance, you're a real estate agent. You're not going to you're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to start a rock band tomorrow because I love metal. That's probably not, I'm just making an assumption. For me, that's right too, right? So ways that you can start incorporating brand, just, when you go to a concert, just go live at that concert.
Right.
Take pictures. Start subtly putting yourself in there. Obviously, you want to make sure you take quality pictures because we all know the importance of, high quality images. But it's taking pictures. For me, I try to do weekly. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it goes bi-weekly, but I do a weekly music playlist and I share that to people. So I have a Spotify playlist. It's just called, I think it's called Hollie's Pandemic Playlist. I'll probably need to change it soon because I feel like it might be not relevant. Again, you got to stay relevant with times. But I have Hollie's Pandemic Playlist, and I'll put music out there. If people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. Like, I had somebody message me that was like, it's good to say that it's safe to assume that you didn't listen to bad music. I'm like, in high school, I'm like, I can guarantee you my music was a lot better than a lot of other kids in high school. But it was just kind of cool though, because people start appreciating that about you. They're like, oh, that's cool. Or like, you start sharing music, and people just kind of seeing that side of you outside of just work. Because the key to branding is understanding your profession, right? So like real estate is what you do. It's not who you are. So who are you, and how are you kind of mixing a splash of your expertise as well as your uniqueness? That's going to be how you stand out in a brand. I almost said band, but that's going to be how you stand out in your marketplace. That's going to be how you start attracting those people. They're like, oh my gosh, you like Metallica? I like Metallica. Let's talk business. It sounds silly, but it will happen. People will start appreciating that about you. And even if they don't understand it, they will probably support you if they are coming from a place of love.
Right. They'll probably respect you for saying what you like. Right. I love that. So that's kind of the, what is your brand? And then, so where should people be, like, what are the, Facebook, Instagram?
Everywhere. And I say that with a sense of everywhere where you, everywhere where you feel comfortable posting, or if it's, for instance, TikTok for me, I feel like I should understand it, but I don't understand it. Like, right. I feel like I'm like, oh, the thought of like that is like nails on a chalkboard. TikTok's an amazing platform. I know so many people have gone viral. So many people have gotten business from it. But for me, I'm like, okay, it's just, I don't understand it. Right. So my 90% of my time is not going to be on TikTok, safe to say. Right. So it's understanding where are you most comfortable with and familiar with on a platform. Right. Number two, where's your avatars at? Where's your clients at? So for instance, they always put out these great annual reports that shows like income and age groups and things like that too, when it comes to platforms and demographics. And I think it's like paying attention to those reports. I have to look and see who it is. I think it's social something. I have to look. I'll make sure to connect back with you and give you that that resource. But they'll go in there, and like LinkedIn is like one of the places where the people with the highest net worth are at, because obviously it's a professional. You're not going to have a 13-year-old on there, right? So to me, it's like if you were a boutique, a women's boutique, target age of 19 to 26, you're probably not going to be advertising on LinkedIn, because that's not going to be your demographic. In the sense that there's, it's like more males, it's older people, in the sense of like, more established professionals. You wouldn't want to put all your eggs in that basket, but you would want to go in on Instagram. So it's getting clarity on where your people are at, and then also getting comfortable on those platforms and understanding it more. And then also online is obviously amazing. So many opportunities, but make sure too, you're living your brand offline. When people see you at an event and you look completely different, or you're acting completely different, there's some inconsistencies there, right? So like to answer your question, your brand needs to be everywhere. Like on our music podcast, like we had stickers we would slap and like give out, and people would tag places like, fire hydrants or whatever. And people would take pictures of it and tag. So it's like, what are some little things that you can be doing so that people are, tagging you on or doing whatever? What are some fun ways? Ralph Nudie is a real estate agent, and he has Nudie on the Beach, Nudi. So he's a real estate agent on the waterfront property. I mean, how brilliant is that branding, right? Nudie on the, it's catchy, it's funny, it's good,
Right.
But I mean, I have one of his shirts. It's a fun shirt to wear on a beach, right? So it's like Nudie on the beach. So like that's another thing. Apparel could be another option. There's just so many opportunities for you to go out and brand yourself. And for me, if you're not doing it, it's just silly not to do that. And even if you're not, it's always who, not how. If you don't know how to do order stickers, or if you don't know how to create graphics, or if you don't know how to start a shop where people can buy your apparel, who do you need to find that does that? Not how can I learn it? And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make, is they try to do everything themselves. They try to figure out themselves, but it's understanding what's your hourly value and what's the best use of your time. For real estate agents, it's probably going to be cold calling or meeting with sellers, right? It's not going to be, running and putting a sign out in the yard, stuff like that. Same thing when it comes to branding. It's okay to outsource that stuff. Now, if you're beginning stages, I'm all about DIY, go for it, but understand the impact that you make too, and what you're doing. So if you're doing like 1,000 socks, for instance, probably not as much of an impact as like, I don't know, 1,000 mugs or something like that, where people are going to stick around. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, and this is so the next, I was going to go to, how do you do this? And then you referenced an awesome book that was recommended to me by John, actually, Who Not How.
Yeah.
So you can think of like, how do you go do this? Do you have to set up a team? Can you do it yourself? Yeah. Maybe you do have to look at the who. That's, I've got Brianna that's been helping me with a lot of podcasts. So that's what do you recommend people do? How do they start?
For starters, I think, obviously you have to be true to your budget. You have to understand. So if somebody who's bringing in real estate, we all know when you get in real estate, you're probably not going to close the deal for the next 3 to 6 months, right. Especially if you're not on the right team. So that being the case, you probably don't have the funds to go out and hire somebody. But what I would say is, if you don't have the time to hire somebody full time, then go out and find, somebody on Fiverr. Now be careful, because the last thing you want to do is, Fiverr is a great place to start, but it's you don't want to look like everybody else. Everybody's going to go to Fiverr. Everybody's going to type it. You know what I mean? Like if it pops up search engine or whatever, just making sure it's you. That's the brand. Go to places like Fiverr. Go to places like reach out to trade services if you have to. You know what I mean? Like help somebody in one way or mentor them one way, and then have them help you another way. Really research your network too. I think that really helped me with connecting with people, is pulling out going through Facebook, saying, okay, who do I have that can help me with this?
Right.
Who do I have? And then obviously, like, a great exercise to do too is when you start building that list, say, what's the chances of them saying yes to helping me? So if it was somebody that I met at a conference 5 years ago and I haven't spoke to them since, it's probably not going to be a yes, because they're like, oh my gosh, what are you really going to message me 5 years later and then ask for something? But my thing is like, those are going to be, especially when starting out, those are going to be valuable people that you can help and they can help you. So instead of just saying, hey, can you do this? Start adding value to them in some sort of way. Even if it's just supporting them by liking their post. Like, you don't have to go out and donate $1 million to their favorite charity, especially if you don't have $1 million.
Right.
But just go in there and like their post, comment on their post, support them in a way that's free, in the sense of, a lot of people, you hear a buzzword of social digital currency. That stuff's free. A like is a free. Right. A recommendation is a free. If someone says, hey, I need a real estate agent in here, and you tag them, they're going to be like, wow, that's really cool. Thank you so much for tagging me, or thank you for thinking of me. Start making those deposits, because the last thing you want to do is start jeopardizing relationships that are going to be valuable in the sense of business, just by asking, take. Think about a bank account. Like, you can only take out so much before the bank's going to like, okay, you're cut off. Like, you owe us money.
Right.
Same thing with people that are, you're cut off. I'm not going to help you anymore. We all know those people that are like, hey, I have a favor. Hey, can you do this? Hey, and at one point you're like, I'm going to leave them on red because I'm not even going to talk to them. Like, I'm done with that. So take a relationship. So I think that's important too, is building up that network of people and professionals, because if they don't know, there's a good chance that they know somebody that can help you. So it's all about surrounding yourself with the right people. Then, like I said, outsourcing too, if you have to, but there's a good chance already in your network, there's somebody that can help you with that.
Yeah. Love this. Wow. Oh my gosh. We could go on and on.
I know. It's so much fun.
this is great. I gotta ask you now, our favorite band.
Oh my gosh. So a lot of the listeners may not know who they are, although they've become popular, but The Used. They're like my favorite band since I was like 12, which was super cool, because this is the power of podcasting. Like, talk about coming full circle. Two stories I have that come full circle, but I'll share this one. Last month we had a member of The Used on our podcast, and I was like, wow. Like, I feel like we made it, right? And I know, like, right. That's not Metallica, it's not Guns N' Roses, but they're my Guns N' Roses. They're my AC/DC. Like, that's my ultimate favorite band. Like, I could sing every song ever. And it's so crazy. Like, you know what I mean?
So but yeah. USED?
Yeah, USED. So they're like a screamo emo band. But they're becoming back to be popular again. So that's kind of cool to see those guys, becoming back out and putting out some new music. But that's just that when you start branding yourself, you start doing these exciting things like podcasting. I've gotten the opportunity, like, this is another really quick story I'll share real fast. But like, for instance, like I said, we had saved up our money for music. Was a big thing for us, me and my sisters and my brother. Me and my sister, Tiffany, we went in halfsies on a demo tape, not even like a full tape. Like, this is going to show my age, but a cassette tape of a band. We didn't know who they were, but they were called Third Eye Blind. And we decided we were going to put both of our money together. Obviously, this is the 90s when they first came out. Mm. And we put our money together, and we played that cassette tape till like the ribbon broke off. Like, it was ridiculous how much we played like those 4 songs that was on that demo tape. But in 2019, I got to interview the band. And not only did I interview the band, it's just crazy, the opportunity of branding and positioning yourself and authority building. I'm such a huge fan on that, because you get to do cool stuff. So I had got an interview with them, or with Chris, who's the guitarist. And I bypassed all the VIP people who were waiting in the sun to get first dibs on being center stage. I got to go up to the green room. I got to interview them. At the end of it, Chris was like, oh, are you going to the after show? Which I'm like, they don't sell tickets to an after show. I'm like, right. No, I don't know. So he had his manager give me a sticker that said, nice, like, the Third Eye Blind after show. He's like, I want you to come back and I want you to talk to our guy about podcasting. Wow. So I got to talk to his guy about podcasting. They have it's called Pod something. I can't remember what. Third Eye, I can't remember what it is, but they have a podcast now. But before they launched it, I was talking to his guy about podcasting and doing all this stuff. It was just a phenomenal night. And then afterwards we got pizza, and then it's so cool because, of course, everybody's like, Third Eye Blind. Oh my gosh, I loved you guys in the 90s. And so I'm at the bar area with them. And the bartender was like, this shot's on me, guys. So she brings out shots for all the band. So he stops her and was like, whoa, we need one more. Hollie's part of the band. And I'm like, that's just a cool experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, going through times like that. And if I was not to put myself out there, if I wasn't to say, oh my gosh, somebody's going to make fun of me or do whatever, that would have never happened. So just think about and it doesn't have to be going and taking shots with one of your childhood favorite bands or interviewing your all-time favorite band. But maybe it's meeting with the builder you really have a passion for making a difference in the community. If you were meeting with a builder, and this is all about branding, and you stop in and say, hi, Tabor, who's a builder in Oklahoma. Hi, Tabor. I'm a real estate agent. Here's my card. Let's do coffee sometime. Do you really think Tabor's going to call you back? He's a busy guy. However, if I was to approach Tabor and say, hi, Tabor, I'm Hollie Kitchens. I have a cast called Unleash Your Inner Legend. And I would love to have you on the show talking about how you're building green homes and homes with built-in storm shelters and the importance of that. I'd love to have you on the show and talk about it. Don't you think Tabor's going to meet with you then?
Yeah, totally.
That's the power of branding. That's the power of positioning. That's the power of authority. And it doesn't have to be, like I said, hobby, although it's a lot of fun when you do incorporate that. But think about, how are you positioning yourself? How are you branding yourself to be introduced to those people, to have those doors open for you? Because at the end of the day, we all have the same goal. So just go for it.
That's a great story. That's my mind is I'm spinning out here. So I'm thinking, who are all the people I need to go ask for an interview now, right? Just
100%. Key to networking too and connecting with these people. Don't talk about yourself. Don't say, hi, I'm Hollie Kitchens. I'm so fabulous. I have this podcast. Like, at the end of the day, there's a good chance you're probably not like somebody like a big name, right? Like, some people can get away with that, like celebrities, right? Position yourself, say, hi, I love what you do. I love this. I have a platform where I want to share about your new book. So yesterday, I dropped on my podcast an interview with Sharon Letcher, who wrote Outwitting the Devil. She was involved with the Napoleon Hill Foundation back in 2008. She was co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all of those things. Now, do you think I hit Sharon up with saying, hey, I'm so fabulous, be on my fabulous podcast? No. Right. I hit her up and said, hey, I'd love to have you on. You drop so much value. You could really inspire other people on my podcast. I'd love to have you on. Come to find out, she has a book that she's just released or is about to release at the end of this month. You better believe I followed up with her assistant and said, hi, because I gave her my calendar. The days didn't work. Her assistant. I gave the assistant my calendar. Days didn't work. I updated my calendar. Didn't hear back. You better believe I hit back and said, hey, I'd still love to have her on regarding her book and really publishing and pushing out. So how are you positioning that opportunity so it's a win for them? Take yourself out of the equation. But I think there's so much power in network. There's so much power. And I think people underutilize that because they're scared to say, oh, somebody's going to say no. Well, they're probably going to say no because you're a taker. Like, do the work, add value. Like I said, even a like or a comment or a tag or a mention could help start building that relationship up and start going from there. Yeah,
that's talk in terms of the other person's interest, right?
Yeah,
they want to talk about themselves.
Yeah,
I love it. This is so we're gonna have to do this again.
Yes, it's so much fun.
Thank you so much. We've aside from talking about music, which was a bonus here. Thank you. Yep. Talking about the negative, some of the bad things, the things not to do when you're building your brand. We talked about. I have a bunch of notes here, so this is great.
Awesome.
The what is your brand, the where do we put it out there, and how / who to help you out. So I think people are going to get a lot of value out of this as they're thinking about their brand and how to get started. If they want to get started and want to drill deeper into this, how do they do that? You have a course that I know you offer, and you've got some other things. Tell us a little bit how they can follow up with you and find you.
Yeah, 100%. So you can just go to holliekitchens.com, HOLIE kitchens.com. And I have on there, I have some free resources. I have some DIY. So for those who are like, for instance, story stickers, you see those fun stickers like on Facebook and Instagram when you add stories.
Oh, yeah.
Like I have a course on DIY. So for those who are just, hey, I want to learn how to do that myself and I want to do that. But then I also have a DFY, which is done for you service on that as well as podcasting. I have a DIY course on that. I do take on by an application basis of clients who like Ryan Bowman, who we just went through on establishing their personal brand, dialing in like logos. Even if you have a company logo, you need a personal branded logo to where people are going to recognize that look and feel, so you can show up super professional and polished. So I do take those on too. So if you just go to holliekitchens.com, you can click on, I think it says work with me. And it's just a simple questionnaire. It's like, hey, how can I help you type thing. We have a discovery call, which is totally free. And then from there, we can move forward or not. But yeah, holliekitchens.com is the best place to start to connect.
Awesome. All right. People are going to go check you out there.
Love it.
You obviously are passionate about this subject. You are an expert. Thank you for being so authentic, dynamic, and smart. This is like really good stuff that I got a lot out of this. So thank you very much. I know people will.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me an opportunity to talk about it. Like I get so excited and I can geek about this stuff all day long.
We'll have you back. We'll catch up. Maybe, we'll do some new stuff with our brand and you can check in and see how we're doing.
We can check in. We can do a follow-up on who you got on your podcast. That would be cool.
There you go.
And then we can talk more about podcasting, because podcasting is just because I guess it's the first method of really branding myself. That's the most exciting topic. So I could talk about that all day long.
I love it. And so we'll do that. Brianna's going to hit you up and
love it.
We'd love to hear from your perspective how that's helped. And this was just incredible. I really appreciate your time, Hollie. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you in person, hopefully at one of these events soon.
Yes, absolutely. Cannot wait.
Awesome. So check out holliekitchens.com. I know you can find her on Facebook and Instagram as well. Follow Real Estate Life with Rob Edgerly on YouTube. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, and would love to catch up with you and get your thoughts on this. This will be coming out in a couple of days. So remember, it's not just where you live, it's how you live. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.